Sweet.
You are listening to Double Doinkers Fantasy Football Podcast with Nick Meyer and Willie J. We are bringing you the AFC Deep Dive preseason breakdown. And of course, if you're on the YouTube, you're already following along with this right now. We are doing this after the AFC South review, deep dive, etc. If you are listening on the podcast, we just did our AFC South breakdown. If you want to listen to that, we discussed the dark horse AFC Super Bowl team that you should probably hear about on there if you want to check it out. So, Willie, it's a hot June night.
Yes.
My power's already gone out once. I'm so happy that I've got this backup power bank thing that everything's attached to. How are you holding up? How's it going?
Well, if you're listening on Spotify, I'm sure it's also a very hot July night. This might be my sleepiest podcast of all time. If you're watching on YouTube, I promise I do actually sleep. I just have genetically dark eyes. I am getting sleep though, but it's been a busy week. But I'm powering through. And I'm excited to talk about the AFC East. I think this is one of the more consistent divisions because there's two powerhouses and two teams that are going to be pretty bad. So it's a nice little mix.
And I know the two teams that are going to be pretty bad are the Pats and the Bills. So
yeah,
we can get that out of the way right now. Get out of here, Northeastern America. Go on. I suppose I should include the Jets when I say that, but I don't include them in anything. Yeah, so the AFC East, Willie, you wrote up the notes on this one. I'm going to let you lead us through this a little bit here. I'll jump in as needed. But yeah, thank you for joining us. We are doing this deep dive. We did this last year. We're doing it again this year. If you are just listening on the Spotify, we will get through every division and they're all separate on here. So check them out. This is, in my opinion, the great thing for people who don't know a lot about the teams or who haven't paid attention to any of the offseason moves. We're just going to name all the players. We'll talk a little briefly about kind of what their status is, but this is a good way to get to hear every single name that you're probably going to be interested in come draft season.
Yeah, and we're starting off with the AFC East, which was an interesting division last year, partly because of its winner. The Patriots went 14-3, and they had a pretty ridiculously easy schedule, but they capitalized on that if your team name was not the Raiders.
Yeah. Week 1, dude, the Raiders season was looking so good before it crashed out real hard, but we got to beat the Pats. Tom Brady's first game on the sidelines is
what a beautiful mirage. But no, Patriots did go 14-3. Drake May MVP in runner-up in MVP, runner-up in Super Bowl. But the Bills were still an absolute powerhouse. They went 12-5. Dolphins had a respectable 7-10, which is actually kind of surprising. I thought they had 5 wins, but I guess they did something. And of course, the Jets went 3-14 under first-year coach Aaron Glenn. All right, so we're going to start off today though with the New England Patriots, the defending champs. Now, the big story with their offense and fantasy in general last year was Drake May's superstar leap into one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He, was very impressive with both his arms and his legs, as evidenced by the fact that the Patriots finished 6th in rushing yards and 4th in passing yards. But, and this actually surprised me quite a bit, Patriots were 4th in passing yards, but they were 23rd in passing attempts, which is just
efficiency. Well,
yes.
That's a little spooky, actually, when you put it out that way, because that sort of efficiency is kind of hard to catch again.
It is. There's just some games where, May was able to control the ball so well. He didn't turn it over, and he just had, I think he had one of the highest completion percentages in the league. So he was just extremely efficient, no matter who he was throwing to. And there was, we'll talk about quite a variety of different receivers. And they were second overall in points. So just a very prolific offense and a very, very solid defense. Not a lot of change this year in terms of the coaching staff. Mike Vrabel returns for year 2. I would be shocked if he has any form of suspension related to his off-the-field transgressions.
It wouldn't make sense to suspend him for it, but I do wonder if it's going to impact his ability to stay focused, because he's going to get questions about it.
Yeah.
Because it was a media member that he was having an affair with, and she was married also, so it's just going to be a whole circus around it. I feel like New England doesn't like circuses very much.
It's obviously talked a lot less in the news now, but it's still everyone is when Mike Vrabel's name is mentioned, it's that affair and that scandal is attached to it now. And I could see it ramping up again as the season starts. And I mean, we're just kind of, spitballing here, but like if the Patriots do struggle or the coaching decisions struggle, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. He's definitely not in the hot seat. He was just in the Super Bowl, but I don't think he has the safest job in the world if the Patriots struggle. But I do suspect that their offense is going to continue to at least remain consistent because Josh McDaniels returns for year 2. He was, of course, the head coach of the Raiders, but in between that, he also spent 9 years as the OC of the Patriots during the Tom Brady golden era. So with or without Bill Belichick, he's very familiar with the system, and he, had an incredible offense last year. And then Zach Kerr, it's his first year as the official defensive coordinator. He was the linebackers coach last year, but Vrabel is still the de facto leader of the defensive play calling. Of course, May returns as starting quarterback. Tommy DeVito is now his backup. Josh Dobbs has left. Notable losses are, of course, most apparently probably Stephon Diggs and Austin Hooper at tight end, the duo of Antonio Gibson and D'Ernest Johnson at running back. But there's been plenty of additions on the receiving front, most notably A.J. Brown, who was acquired a couple weeks ago in a trade. But, despite the loss of Stephon Diggs, this team is still absolutely loaded at receiver. And there's going to be some interesting questions just in terms of the amount of roster spots they can fill. Because, I mean, I'll read them off right here. But we got A.J. Brown, obviously. But Romeo Doubs was also signed in free agency. Kayshon Boutte is still here. Mac Hollins, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, and last year's undrafted rookie who had a couple pretty big games, Efton Kism III. So that is 7 receiver spots on the roster currently, and that's with A.J. Brown coming in. So, A.J. Brown obviously had some targets that he shared the field with in Philadelphia, but I think that the Patriots still an extremely crowded receiver room. And of course, at the tight end position, we got old reliable Hunter Henry. They also took a 3rd-round rookie out of Notre Dame, Eli Raridon. But I think overall, both in terms of offense and defense, this team really did a good job of, capitalizing on players that fit the scheme to supplement their losses. For example, like obviously A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs aren't a 1-to-1 comparison in terms of their athletic talent, but maybe in terms of their personality a little bit. No, that's a slight to A.J. Brown, but there is still a lot of consistency on this team. And I'm gonna open it up though with some questions, and I think we're gonna have to start with A.J. Brown. He's kind of he kind of commands that attention. So crowded wide receiver room. I'll start with just A.J. Brown in terms of his, who he is as a player.
This will bleed over into both of them, I think.
Yeah, and I will say so. I talked about the amount of mouths to feed on the Philly offense, and A.J. Brown still producing year after year. So, regardless of the amount of, targets on this team, do you think A.J. Brown is going to perform better than he did last year, or let's say the past couple years on the Eagles? Worse, or is he going to be about the same in terms of his fantasy output?
He'll be better than last year and maybe worse than 3 years ago. That's the barometer I'm going to put in. With 2 years ago, I think he could be better than 2 years ago even, because 2 years ago was really hit or miss. You still ended up with a top 10 overall season, I believe, but it was buoyed by explosive games followed by like moments of just him disappearing. I don't really see him disappearing in this wide receiver. So the way I look at it is this: you have A.J. Brown, you have Romeo Doubs, you've got Boutte and Kyle Williams, and I think any of the rest, even Pop Douglas, can be on the outside. But I would say Mac Hollins is Mac Hall out, and effed on Kism is effed off Kism. I'm sorry, I have to make those jokes. I'm contractually obligated. But so realistically, with A.J. Brown, I think you're probably going to get a little bit of a discount. Maybe not much, because A.J. Brown's still a big name. So if you're looking like 3rd, 4th round, if you're in the 4th round, and I should check this real quick, but if you're in the 4th round, I'm in on A.J. Brown, and I don't like that because I don't really want A.J. Brown on my team currently. The way he's been, no, dude, he's in the 2nd round. I'm out. Nope, can't do it. Yeah. Can't do it. That makes me so mad. Gosh,
I was phrasing this as like, do you see him being the same? Because that's where he is. He's going around where he was being taken last year.
So he comes to Mike Vrabel. He's been in he got drafted by Mike Vrabel, right? he likes Mike Vrabel. His favorite team is the Patriots. Everything in the world should point to A.J. Brown being happy. And here's the truth of it all. I don't think A.J. Brown can be happy. Not in a team sport. He seems like a guy who needs more than a team sport can give him. And the Patriots, I don't think, do very well with nurturing particularly needy attitudes. Now, Vrabel might be able to handle it, and winning usually solves these issues. But there's a thing for me when it comes to teams that were in the Super Bowl and lost, where I think that I need discounts on players, not elevation. And they're all, like A.J. Brown in particular, if he's going in round 2 at pick number 20 on average right now, I think he's going to have a good season. I don't think he's going to have that season.
It's hard for me because I totally get the understanding of, Drake May being on his rookie contract, needing that alpha wide receiver 1 to just take his ceiling to the next level. But the thing for me is that he took that ceiling to the next level with just, a rogues gallery of different wide receiver 3s, some wide receiver 2 moments, and he got it done. And I don't disagree that he, getting more weapons for him isn't going to help him, but I feel like the Patriots would have been better off just taking an Omar Cooper Jr. in the first round instead of trading their first next year for A.J. Brown. Now, obviously, Brown's going to pay off more quickly, but at the same time, he got it done last year with these guys, and, Diggs is gone, but you bring in Romeo Dubes, you draft a guy. Was the A.J. Brown trade really necessary for Drake May's development? I don't think so.
It's hard for me because A.J. Brown is going to demand the ball. And I actually think that's going to hurt this offense because this offense was able to be efficient by throwing to the person who's open downfield. You saw those games where Mac Hollins was involved. You saw Booty catch some crazy passes, but you didn't see any of these guys consistently because it was all about who gets open and how do I throw it to them. If A.J. Brown's out here going like, no, you got to give me the ball. Otherwise, I'm going to get pissed at everybody here. It's going to hurt the whole offense.
And not to mention the run game, there was headaches for fantasy with the Stevenson-Henderson split, but the run game was also prolific. So it's not like this is the receiving, core is needed to bolster this offense. They just were in sync together last year. And again, May found the guy downfield. If that didn't work out, he didn't throw a pick. He just handed off the ball, and they got it done on the ground. So it's, Brown is a player to get excited about on this offense, but if he's going around the same place he went last year, there is a world where I see him doing better than last year. But is that enough for a second round value as your most likely your wide receiver 1? I don't think so. I like him as my wide receiver 2 because he's going to have those big games. He's going to be the big star here, and the Patriots are a good offense. But he's more like a T. Higgins to me than this wide receiver 1 that he's projected to be.
I think that the path for A.J. Brown to make me eat these words is very clear and very obvious. He comes into a offense that didn't have a de facto wide receiver 1. I mean, Stephon Diggs just wasn't that guy at this point. And he can take over that role as the de facto wide receiver 1. He's got the attitude to take over a role as a wide receiver 1. However, I just don't know that this offense is going to thrive on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about Josh McDaniels, and I don't like to do that, but I am doing it. So I'm thinking about Josh McDaniels and how he treated Devontae Adams, a vastly different wide receiver, mind you, but he did pepper him with targets when he was on the Raiders. And it didn't work at all for the winning. The Raiders didn't win doing that. So I think that seeing that the Patriots made the Super Bowl again last year with this split and just finding whoever was open and hyper efficiency of targets, I can't imagine Josh McDaniels is going, hey, we need to make sure we pepper A.J. Brown with targets. But you know what A.J. Brown's definitely doing? Pepper me with targets.
Yeah.
Give me those targets. I deserve it. I'm always open every single time. The reason why the Eagles fell off last year is because they didn't keep throwing me the ball. And he's in Drake May's ear. And Drake May is a young quarterback still, 3rd year. I don't know. It's bad for me because there's a lot of really negative things hanging over this team right now. Travion Henderson said some stupid things. Mike Vrabel did some stupid things. A.J. Brown comes in here and he's not exactly the right guy to fix the feelings, and then you lose in the Super Bowl. it scares me. It worries me. And this is a take where I could absolutely be wrong because they could be, just full on professionals come out and do much better than I'm giving them credit for. But God, dude, pick 20, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
It's hard for me because, I mean, if you compare him to like Devontae Adams on the Rams, like not only was Adams going later in drafts, there wasn't that target competition on the Rams offense wherein, Adams still had that path to getting all those red zone touchdowns because he was a big part of it. And A.J. Brown is going to be a bigger part of the Patriots offense. But targets aside, the touchdown numbers for A.J. Brown just don't excite me on paper. I think that he could be he could get multiple touchdowns, but he's going to have those disappearing weeks where even if he's being targeted, it's not working out. And May's a smart enough quarterback that he's going to pivot from Brown. If Brown's getting double coverage, May's not going to keep forcing it to Brown no matter how much Brown insists. Like, I think May is going to read the other players on this team, see them open, and rely on that. It could be wrong. Brown could have a really good season, but it's just he needs a drop or at least a round for me to get excited about him.
Agreed. And here's the one, if I'm looking at the other side of this argument, here's the argument I would make for Brown. And to be very clear, I'm not operating by this argument, but this is the argument I think you could make, is that the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl last year, and they got embarrassed in the Super Bowl. They got blown out. There's not a lot of Super Bowl blowouts, and that was a Super Bowl blowout. The Seahawks came in, and they made them look like fools. They made them look like they didn't belong in the same game at all. And they could be thinking, hey, well, here's the issues. We don't have anyone dominant to take over the game when we need him to take over the game. And they said, A.J. Brown is that dominant guy to take over the game. And if that's what they think and that's what they force, I think A.J. Brown is good enough at Yak to make something really good with a lot of targets.
True, but A.J. Brown's not going to have to they're not going to be being blown out like they were in the Super Bowl every game. A.J. Brown's not going to have to take over a lot of games. That's the thing for me.
Yeah. I don't want to argue for it. I don't want him in round 2. On my teams, you're never going to find me in round 2 being okay with selecting A.J. Brown for a multitude of reasons. I think that the potential is there where he returns on that value, but it's not what I'm betting on. I can't bet on that. There's just no choice of me betting on him at number 20. I think I'm fully out on A.J. Brown at number 20.
There's just a lot of other players around him that have also equally high ceilings and better floors for me. That's the thing. It's not even just his value in the second round being too high. It's just there's other players that are going to be available when he's available that I like more. I think is the way it looks. I will ask this: do you have any sleepers on this receiving core? And I guess I'll throw in Hunter Henry as well. That stand out to you as being like, oh, this is going to be a breakout season for this guy, and I want to target him.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so on this receiving core, I mean, it would be Kyle Williams, I think, because we saw some flashes from Kyle Williams last season. He's really, really, really fast, and he could be an awesome deep ball guy. And we saw what worked was the efficiency of the offense, right? So the really fast deep ball guy who might be getting open because A.J. Brown's eating up coverage on the other side or, in the middle is someone who I'd be interested in. Dubs feels like he could provide the same value he provided in Green Bay, which is a vaguely safe, but also could just be game planned out for a particular week.
Yeah.
And then Booty is too hit or miss. Like if there's someone really in the receiving core that I want that's not A.J. Brown, it's probably Hunter Henry, because Hunter Henry kind of to me last year felt like the heart of the team as far as receiving went. Like when Hunter Henry had a good game, the Patriots seemed to just do better.
Yeah.
But no, I don't love it. If A.J. Brown was in the 4th round, I'm telling you to draft him. If in the 2nd round, I'm telling you not to draft him, and I'm out on him. Honestly, that's kind of really the difference here for me.
Yeah, I think that I really see Dubes having a repeat of what he did in Green Bay. I mean, it's a similar situation for him. This crowded receiver room full of wide receiver 2s. And I think that he could have those. I think he's a solid bench player. They did give him a contract. They clearly like him. I think Kyle Williams is free. So if you like this offense, he's worth a shot. I've heard Booty in trade rumors as well.
Yeah, let me give you some names that are going around A.J. Brown. I smiled because I saw this, okay? So this is A.J. Brown or I'll start off with A.J. Brown or Drake London.
Drake.
Okay. A.J. Brown or Nico Collins.
Nico Collins.
A.J. Brown or George Pickens.
George Pickens, probably. Those are fair comparisons.
We're getting there. Okay.
Yeah.
AJ Brown or Brock Bowers? I know they're different positions, but
I mean, who do I think is going to be more valuable? Bowers.
Okay, and then here's their last two fun ones. Okay, AJ Brown or Malik Neighbors?
Malik Neighbors for me.
And Malik Neighbors is going almost a full round later somehow.
That's crazy.
Okay, finally, AJ Brown or Devonta Smith?
Honestly,
yeah.
I think they should be ranked pretty equally. So it's kind of a coin flip for me, but I'll put my chips in the Devonta Smith basket.
Yeah, and Devonta Smith is third round right now, whereas AJ Brown is solidly in the middle of the second. I just the issue isn't that I don't see the path for upside. The issue is that I don't see the path for upside that I need to take him where he's going currently. He has to drop significantly. If you're giving me fourth round, I can tell you be in on him. Much like I was in on DK last year for the same idea, and maybe like this is different because he's better talent than DK and he's got oh my God, I can't believe I'm about to say it. He's got a better head on his shoulders than DK does right now. Imagine. But at 20, I can't. I can't. I really can't.
Yeah, okay. Well, I will say that there's a lot of talent around Brown. Now, with the running backs, okay, I'll just pose it to you this way. Would you rather take a swing on Trayvon Henderson, or are you out on Henderson and would rather take a swing on Ramondre Stevenson, elite RB2 in the double digits, or are you just indifferent towards both?
I think I would take a swing on Henderson because we did see a little bit last year. We saw both the good and the bad from Henderson. We saw him kind of get phased out because of his pass blocking or, whatever it was, not being a strong runner through the middle. Then we saw him finally being able to break the runs and the Patriots giving him the opportunity to go and break the runs. And he had some amazing long runs, which is what TreVeyon Henderson was to do. Mm-hmm. The skill set did show up. Now, Stevenson was a solid contributor to teams. Stevenson's not projected to go late enough right now for me to say that like I want him for free because he's at 74, so that's seventh round, late sixth. That's still like a little bit early for me. I want that upside of Henderson because we saw it and we saw it come to fruition when he was given the opportunity. Like there was a solid stack of games near I think October November time when Henderson really was going off each week because he was scoring multiple long touchdowns, and just seeing that gets me excited because that's who he was supposed to be, and I think this team can still use that. When you saw the passing game maybe start to falter a little bit, Henderson came in and made this team look really, really good again in the middle of the season. And Henderson said some stupid things, but on this team, I don't think you can get in trouble for saying stupid things right now. I don't think that's allowed. So I'm taking the swing on Henderson even a little bit earlier than Stevenson. But like Stevenson feels like an okay RB2 for close to 0 RB draft. I don't love that even though. I just don't see the upside there. It's like he can middle out on you as like RB 36. That's great, right? Like, man, that's such a needle mover. If he was like a little bit later and it was just pure depth or pure bench guy, like then in handcuff / depth, I'd be in. But it's still a little bit too early for that. There's players around him that I would rather have.
He's going around that Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard range, and I like both of those guys better. And he's going around the same range as well as Kenneth Gainwell and the Buccaneers. And honestly, like that's a pretty fair comparison for me. I think obviously we've seen more from Stevenson and he's been on his team longer, but he just really does strike me as more of that like running back handcuff that has a lot of upside for a handcuff. Mm-hmm. And Henderson, I'm not out on him in terms of his upside. And I think he could pay off. And like in a 0 running back draft, if he's your RB1, that's disgusting. But like you could do worse as your RB1 if you pivot until the 5th round. So I like him maybe for that strategy, but I don't see McDaniels really favoring one over the other. And I do like both individually in best ball, like kind of like they're going to have those blow up games on separate weeks. We saw that last year. They're both in every year acclimated to his offense. So I think that it's similar logic to Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift, where it's like there's going to be, if one goes down, the other could be a league winner, or that one's going to have really big weeks, or they're both going to put up 7 points. It's going to be all over the place. I'm not particularly excited by either, but I would probably lean Henderson just for the upside.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Henderson that excites me more this year than last year is maybe he's not in the doghouse for the first half of the season, and maybe the addition of A.J. Brown actually opens up things by not allowing them to have as many men in the box. I don't know how big of an issue that was last season. I didn't get into the analytics that far, but I'm definitely choosing Henderson between the two, but I it's not like a slam dunk pick. It's not someone who I'm looking to leave every draft with at this point.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And similar kind of baked in with the Super Bowl hangover logic. I like Drake May a lot this year, but QB4, could I see him finishing QB4? Absolutely. Do I want to draft him at QB4? No, I don't. He just has that. He's around the range of like a Jalen Hurts, where in like I also don't know if I'm in on Hurts that early, but like I'd rather take someone I'm more confident to be consistent in an offense.
I think that the Super Bowl went really poorly for the Patriots, and particularly Drake May. Drake May could not figure out that defense whatsoever, and he got, a lot of things were said about him as a quarterback. I don't think those are fair. I think he's still better, and he's as good as we saw. However, I'm expecting a down year this year. It just seems like after your team loses the Super Bowl nasty like that, you always come out the next year and you kind of just have this like wet towel sort of thing where you can't, you're not. This analogy is not working already because I don't understand it after I said it, but you're just not as effectual, right? Because you're too in your head about proving everyone wrong. You need to be able to get back to what it is, and these teams that make the Super Bowl, especially with young quarterbacks, and they lose like that, you see them falter a lot afterwards. And this is a season that I really hate the vibes around this team. And I said that about San Francisco when they lost to the Chiefs a few years back, and it was, it may be anecdotal, but it was the right call. And I'm feeling that same way about the Patriots right now. I don't really love where they're at. I still think there can be players on this team that are good fantasy producers, but I think you want some of them to slide.
Yeah, it's hard because you're really just like throwing a dart if there's a receiver that could break out. And with A.J. Brown commanding targets, it's not even likely that there will be one to break out. This is just kind of a team where I don't know. You might your players are going to produce, like your big names are going to produce, but maybe you're going to end up wishing you'd taken someone else in that same range. All right, moving on to the Buffalo Bills. So we got, of course, we have a little bit of coaching staff shakeup. I should start off with, but I will mention how great they were last year under the fired Sean McDermott and OC Joe Brady. They were first in rushing yards with the combination of James Cook and Josh Allen. 13th in passing yards, but 4th overall in points. So now, Sean McDermott, after, I want to say, about 8 years of tenure as the head coach, was fired. They promoted Joe Brady to offensive coordinator. Now, he's been in Buffalo since 2022, so he's proven himself as an OC for several years now. He is going to be the play caller, but they did bring in a couple Sean Payton guys. Pete Carmichael Jr. is their new first-year offensive coordinator. You might recognize his name because he was OC of the Saints for 14 years, from 2009 to 2003, and then was just hanging out with his buddy Sean Payton last year. And they also have a new defensive coordinator as well. They bring in Jim Leonhard, who I believe played in the league for several years. He's also coming over from Denver. He was actually the Broncos' assistant head coach last year, and he spent time as their passing game coordinator and their defensive backs coach. So it's Joe Brady and two Sean Payton guys. How do you feel about that?
I don't love it that much. I've heard this hot take that the only way this ends is with Josh Allen finally winning the Super Bowl on a different team once he leaves the Bills. And this firing Sean McDermott was a crazy move. I can kind of get why they did it because they've been stuck in the AFC Championship. But take it from a fan of a team that doesn't make the AFC Championship or the playoffs ever. It's so much harder than you think it is to get there. Like, when you start firing these people, realistically, I think it's much easier to go down than it is to go up.
Yeah, and I mean, keeping Les Snead, their general manager, who, has done many weird things over the years. Not like weird, but just like questionable moves in the draft and free agency. Keeping him.
God, I'm sorry. The issue with their wide receiver and wow, I'm spacing on his name right now, and that's so unfortunate.
Coleman.
Yeah, Keon Coleman, with the general manager coming out and saying what he said about Keon Coleman. And then you keep the general manager and Keon Coleman together on the same team.
It's awkward.
Why is Les Snead still there? If you're going to fire Sean McDermott, get rid of both of them. The owner of this team, especially if the season doesn't go as they plan it, is a certified clown. And you know how the Buffalo Bills fans use the tables to jump on them? He should replace one of the tables at least.
There's going to be, if they have a bad season, there's going to be tables with his face painted on there.
He's going to be like, we need you guys, we need fans to volunteer to like snow plow the stadium, and they're going to snow plow it directly into the stadium as opposed to out of the stadium, and be like, you know what, just close it down, brother.
New stadium this year, though, so.
Yeah, there's reasons to be excited. I'll let you get through it.
Yeah, there's reasons. There's turnover. I mean, there's the consistency of Brady. He's coming in as head coach. I like him as a head coach. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I like what I've seen on offense from him, and I think he could be capable. The big glaring thing here is the amount of defensive pieces that they lost. Now, there was no super elite players that were young and in their prime, but they did lose some mainstays like Jordan Poyer, safety, Tre'Davious White, cornerback, Darius Slay, cornerback, Matt Milano, linebacker, Joey Bosa, AJ Espinoza. Like, those are Shaq Thompson, Taron Johnson, traded to the Raiders. There's a handful of names in there that have been at this team since Josh Allen has been there, and they're not in their prime, but they are, locker room favorites. I'm assuming they've been there a long time, and they had some incredible seasons. So, again, not in their prime, but like that's just a lot of loss on defense, and they didn't add a whole lot in free agency. They took some rookies in later rounds, but there wasn't like any superstar names besides, I think, is Bradley Chubb here, I want to say. What is he, like a one-to-one comparison to Joey Bosa, in my opinion? Like, another older, past his prime defensive end who's been great but has struggled with injuries. It's like there's not a lot of replacements on the defense. So I think that's a cause for concern, but that doesn't really affect fantasy because they still have a lot of the same pieces, and those pieces were pretty dang good last year. So, of course, we got Josh Allen. Their running back room remains exactly the same. James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. Obviously, the biggest news in fantasy and for this team overall is the addition of DJ Moore. And they also, of course, drafted Skylar Bell, rookie in the 4th round, but they did not add anyone else significant besides Moore. He's there with Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Skylar Bell. And they lost quite a bit of, maybe not exciting talent, but a lot of targets with Brandon Cooks. He was there for half the year. He's gone. Gabe Davis was there for most of the year. He's gone. Curtis Samuel was there the whole year. He's gone. So I added up just those 3 names, and I found that there's approximately 63 targets that have been vacated and nearly 500 yards. So when you only bring in a 4th-round rookie and then you have DJ Moore, that's a lot of potential for Moore to just take all in on his own. So I'm going to ask you, DJ Moore, we've seen him in the past have some just great seasons, and especially because of his consistency. Even on the Bears last year, when there was a lot more mouths to feed than there are on this Bills receiving core this year, he still had some really great games. He never missed his time. He was pretty elite in Carolina. I believe actually Joe Brady was the OC while he was there as well. And, on a really bad Carolina team, and he had some great fantasy years. So his consistency is his hallmark. But do you think that DJ Moore has a path to a wide receiver 1 finish in fantasy? And is he, someone that you're going to be heavily targeting? And do you think he's going to be one of the best free agency receiver additions for fantasy this year?
So the first question, I think he has a path to a wide receiver 1 season. I don't know that with Joe Brady in particular, that's how he wants to play offense necessarily. I think the running game working is in his favor. But there's an easy path. We saw it with Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen can support a wide receiver 1. The touchdown potential is there. So if we're going to see anyone do it, it's DJ Moore. As far as am I heavily targeting DJ Moore? Yeah, I think I am. He's in the 5th round currently, and for a very talented wide receiver entering the Bills with Josh Allen and Joe Brady as the coach, And especially on a team that I think really needs to prove something, because at this point they've had Josh Allen forever. They're not proving it to fans anymore. They're proving it to Josh Allen that they can do something. They're saying, hey, we're going to set you up for success. We'll give you this guy and we'll give you the scheme to make it work. I think that they need it to work. It's either him or Dalton Kincaid, in my opinion, and I don't believe that Dalton Kincaid could be that guy. So DJ Moore has to be. I want to temper my expectations here because the Stephon Diggs years were kind of just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'm having a hard time doing that because these other receivers have just not shown that they can be any version of the guy. DJ Moore hasn't realistically shown it very well either. Honestly, like, he has been consistent. He always looks good, but he's only really had one phenomenal season out of all these others. Like, the rest have just been okay. But if you believe that he has that talent, and I do believe that that talent exists within him, this is the year. And in the 5th round, I'll just say this: I'm more excited about DJ Moore right now than I am about AJ Brown.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. That 5th round price tag is nice to me because if he's the wide receiver 2 in my team and I have a good team around him, that's solid, because that price tag, I feel like it should be closer to where AJ Brown is going. Now, AJ Brown, I think, has proven more and is a better talent overall. But in terms of opportunity share and even touchdowns, like, I feel like Moore and Brown are pretty, I don't want to say identical, but pretty similar. And I think that DJ Moore's, one phenomenal season with the Bears and Justin Fields came when he didn't have a lot of target competition. And, his consistency being proven with or without target competition, like, there was so much last year on the Bears that there's just, I like you said, I want to temper my expectations, but there is a path to him having just a really, really solid, maybe even elite season in terms of the amount of touchdowns we can see from him. And also the touchdown regression that I think James Cook may be due for in the run game. I think that, we know what we got with Khalil Shakir. He's a solid slot guy, but he's not ever going to be a wide receiver 1, in my opinion. I didn't even mention Keon Coleman. That whole situation's awkward. And then, we got Skylar Bell, who I actually like a bit as a rookie and a sleeper. I'll be targeting Skylar Bell. But there's no wide receiver 1 that isn't named DJ Moore on this team. And he is a wide receiver 1 in terms of how they traded draft capital for him, in terms of how he's produced on lesser teams in the past. This is, the best offense, the best quarterback, at the very least, he's ever played with. So Moore in the 5th round is probably sneakily becoming one of my favorite picks in fantasy right now. And I think that the potential is very strongly there. And when you're targeting someone in the 5th or 4th round with potential, there's very few names around him that scream like having more potential than him.
And for me, his floor feels fairly safe, right? Like, maybe not on a per game basis, but on a where he finishes at the end of the season basis. I think in the 5th round, you're going to get someone that, even if he doesn't blow up in the way that his upside suggests he may, you're going to get someone who returns value close to the 5th round regardless.
Yeah.
I can see him rising, though. This is my big issue with DJ Moore, is I could see him rising up because the wide receiver 1 overall on the Bears, previously, and now on the Bills with very little competition, has to be enticing because we just haven't seen it. I mean, people were drafting Keon Coleman relatively early. People have been drafting the Bills receiving options regardless of the fact that they just don't have the same amount of talent.
Yeah, because of the Josh Allen effect. But now we have DJ Moore.
Mm-hmm. So him in the 5th round, if it ends up there, it's a slam dunk. I'll be looking to make that pick pretty easily. If he goes up to maybe the 3rd round, I still have some want for that, which shows you how much I think he may rise.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm more hesitant. However, honestly, the last time we saw Josh Allen with a receiver of this quality, it worked very well. Was Joe Brady there at the same time as Stephon Diggs? There must have been a year or 2 crossover, right?
Yeah, there was at least 1 year, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I know the last year of Stephon Diggs wasn't as lights out consistently, but it did have its moments. And I just think there's no way that DJ Moore doesn't return some sort of value that makes you at least okay with the pick. And the upside is so wildly high, potentially.
I'm I'm looking at other receivers that are now de facto wide receiver ones on either their old team or on new teams, and they're all going around, if not higher than DJ Moore. And these are guys that I like, but like we're talking about Jalen Waddle, especially Mike Evans, Christian Watson. These are all guys going around earlier than DJ Moore, which is kind of shocking to me. I like those guys, especially Mike Evans, but Moore I think has probably more of a ceiling and a floor than any of those guys.
Yeah, over Watson, over Waddle, easy. Mike Evans is pretty close, and so if Mike Evans is going around earlier, then I'm way more in on DJ Moore. Again, I just see it rising because I know the Bills made a lot of changes, and we don't agree with all of them. Like as a community, we don't agree really. However, I think everyone has to agree that getting a wide receiver one that's been established is a good thing, and that he's going to put up numbers because their wide receiver options were so horrendous that if Josh Allen's going to chuck it to someone, he might as well chuck it to DJ Moore.
I agree. And I think this in a way, like, I think it does help James Cook. I think last year was kind of the year where some people were out on James Cook because, 2 years ago he had that fantastic season, but it's like, well, he's not inherently a bell cow and, he's not going to do it again. And then he did it even better last year and proved that he is, in fact, actually a bell cow back. So I think he's maybe going a little bit higher for me. He's going in the middle of the first round. I think he's pretty solidly a first-round pick at this point. I like a more late first round, but I don't see any reason why, with Joe Brady coming back, that he's going to regress significantly. I think touchdown regression is what we're going to see. But I think that we know what we have out of Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, and they didn't bring anybody in. So at the very least, the opportunity is going to be there. And even if it means, less of a run game and less carries, less touchdowns, I think the more effect is going to lead to the end zone more than we saw last year in that. So in a way, it kind of balances out. So I might not be as high on Cook as some people, but I think, what do you agree? James Cook is like pretty locked into a first round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any issues with it either. It feels like one of the more safe first round picks at this point. And there's still some upside there. Well, that's complicated because upside in the first round, what is it really? But I think he could return value there. And I don't really see a way he busts.
Yeah, he's someone like he kind of reminds me a bit of Jonathan Taylor, who's even going higher than him, but generally around the same range. It's kind of your preference, and I do think Cook has just a higher floor because both of them are going to suffer, I think, from touchdown regression. But like the Bills' offense is a lot more consistency than another running back like Jonathan Taylor. James Cook doesn't have that injury history as CMC, so he's a very solid, safe guy to target.
I would like to see them use James Cook more in the passing game too, to maybe take some of these big hits that Josh Allen takes off of his shoulders. Because a big part of the reason why the Bills are always so high in the running game is because Josh Allen is fantastic at it, but he is getting older. I know he's a big dude, but we've seen him get some clear concussions that they let him back in the game for. I mean, one, it's not a good look, and two, those will eventually start adding up. So I think I would love to see him get more, like James Cook, get more involved in the screen game. And if that's the case, hey, look, there's points that might make up for a touchdown regression in itself.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that Josh Allen is just kind of the QB1. He's pretty much QB1 every year, never misses time. So like, if you really like quarterbacks early, like, I'm not going to take Josh Allen in the second round. If my league mate takes him, I'll be like, I get it. In a way, I do kind of get it. I wouldn't do it, but like, I'll be jealous.
It's not a bad pick. And yeah, I've been late round QB forever and ever and ever and ever, and I don't think I can change my ways on that at this point. But at the end of the year, I'm always kind of jealous of the guy who has, Josh Allen. He helped buoy his team for sure. He'll do it again, for sure.
If you're an early round QB guy, I'll just say like, I would definitely spend a more expensive pick around earlier on Josh Allen than like getting, like a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May a round or two later. Consistency, I think, is key there. Tight ends, I don't know, Dalton Kincaid. I haven't seen it yet. Are you looking at maybe taking a swing on him?
I don't want to. I think you could do worse, but I don't really want to. He has his opportunities, and last year was clearly he was the heart of the passing game, and it still didn't work because he was getting hurt too much and just missed too much time. For a tight end, I don't like the risk of that. And whenever Dawson Knox catches the ball, he looks pretty good, and it really upsets me when I have Kincaid on my team. So
yeah,
I'm not here for it. I don't really want him. I can, if you like the idea of having the Bills tight end, I think you could do worse as long as you're not drafting him before round 11.
Yeah. If you had a new coaching staff or was on a new team, I would maybe look at it because he's got that first round pedigree. But I do kind of view him as like, I don't even know if we talked in depth about him, but like a Brenton Strange, where he's like tight end one on a really good offense. So it's like kind of pick your poison, but take someone maybe later because Kincaid still has that name value. Anything else to say about the Bills?
No. They're stadium issues. All I see with stadium issues are getting to me, but that's neither here nor there for this podcast.
All right, we're moving on. Now we're taking a little bit of a dive off the cliff. We're talking about the Dolphins up next. Okay, Miami Dolphins. They have had some changes this year, to say the least. So last year, under a completely different regime, this might be the most changed team in the NFL, and not inherently for the better. New coach, new coaching staff, new quarterback, new receiving core, completely new receiving core. They finished 13th in rushing under Mike McDaniel, 25th in passing, and 25th overall in points. So they blew everything up. They even got a new GM for the first time in like over a decade. So they really blew everything up. They brought in Jeff Hafley, who was defensive coordinator for the Packers. They also brought in Bobby Slowick, who we know from CJ Stroud's one great year and one awful year. He was there actually last year as their passing game coordinator, I believe. So he's just getting promoted to offensive coordinator. Kevin Patullo comes in to take his role as their new passing game coordinator. I guess that Dolphins passing game coordinator is just kind of like whoever is the worst offensive coordinator in the league the year prior gets that role.
Literally a guy who got fired because he couldn't figure out how to pass the ball.
Specifically, yes.
With Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. And they're like, hey, we don't have any of those guys. Can you come do it with us?
They also did bring over another Hafley guy as their defensive coordinator, Sean Duggan, but it's Hafley's defense. All right. There was a bajillion losses. The notable ones, I mean, just legitimately a bajillion defensive losses, offensive line losses, just a lot. But obviously the big names are Tua at the quarterback. He's gone. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I can't think of the last time that a team lost both of their wide receiver ones, their 1A, 1B in an offseason. That's, obviously last year was a down year, but if you told me even a couple years ago that neither Waddle nor Hill would be on this team anymore, that would be pretty shocking. It would be like if the Bengals didn't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins next year. Like not quite that extreme, but like
it's close. This feels to me like a full rebuild. Like they really just tore it down and they said, okay, let's redo this thing. And you almost feel like this is the trap team to me right away, in that they feel so bad that they can't possibly be as bad as they look.
Do you mean that positively or negatively?
Positively. I think that they're going to shock people and win 4 games.
I think their Vegas win total is at like 3.5 right now. So that would be at least a slight win.
I mean, it's just, God, it's ugly, man.
It's pretty ugly. And so the one perhaps shiny bit of hope they have is Malik Willis is also coming over from the Packers. Now, Malik Willis has started, I mean, I can count on my hands like the amount of games he started, and I can count on one hand the amount of games he's had where he looked good. And that really is unfair to him because he started in Tennessee, which was a dumpster fire. And then he came in relief Jordan Love and looked pretty dang solid. At the very least, he looked like starting potential under a competent regime, I should say. But I think the Dolphins gave him a solid contract, kind of a prove-it deal. So he's coming in as more likely than not QB1 unless Quinn Ewers pops off somehow. But he's coming in with just a brand new receiving core. So I mentioned the losses, but right now on the depth chart, starting wide receivers, and this is not a joke, are Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert coming over from the Cowboys, and Tutu Atwell coming over from the Rams. Those guys are wide receiver 4s. That is not even hyperbole. That is legitimately insane. I'll talk about the rookies, but that is just really bad. Really.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument here for me as far as how bad it is. I do think that Jalen Tolbert, if you're going to take a swing on one of these guys, and I almost recommend that you do it because they're all going to be super duper cheap. And one of them is going to have a year that's vaguely respectable fantasy-wise, maybe not real life-wise, because they have to throw the ball, and it has to go somewhere. Jalen Tolbert is someone that I'm okay with targeting, and that's kind of gross, but it is someone I'm okay with targeting just because I think he's got the talent to actually catch the ball and run fast with it.
Of these three names, yeah, I mean, he stands out to me. Tutu Atwell, I don't know. And then Malik Washington, he's young, but like...
We saw him get the opportunity last year a little bit, and he just did nothing with it.
Yeah, so I like Tolbert. My guys I'm targeting, I will mention the three rookies real quick. We talked about this a bit earlier after the draft, but there's Caleb Douglas in round 3, Chris Bell in round 3, and Kevin Coleman Jr. in round 5. I'll keep it short and just say that I really do like Chris Bell quite a bit as someone to target. He was a projected late first-round pick in last year's college season. He tore his ACL midway through the year, so I don't know his exact recovery timeline, but he is a wide receiver 1 talent that fell in drafts because of injury. So on a team with no wide receiver 1 talent at all, I like Chris Bell the most to target here.
This is fair. If he's free, I'm so okay with it. If he rises at all, I don't want to be involved. I want to wash my hands of the situation. But if he's free, then okay, I don't mind it. I would love to see some reports that he's actually going to start playing pretty quick in the season. He's not someone I'm going to hold on my bench. He's someone like if he doesn't play for the first 2-3 weeks, whatever, you just pick him up the week before he comes back.
I don't think he's getting drafted in any league at all this year. So he's definitely free. He is probably even more of just a waiver wire watcher. But, all that to say, I'm going to ask you, do you think that Malik Willis has any potential as we'll just say high-end QB2, your bench quarterback that could flash based on what we saw in Green Bay and based on his, rushing upside?
So here's where my thought comes from first off, is I think that you are going to ask yourself, what is going to be Devon Achan's role in this team? Is it going to change? Mike McDaniels is gone. Mike McDaniels clearly knew how to use Achan very efficiently and effectively for fantasy in particular. Achan was the heartbeat of the team. He was catching a bunch of passes, and he was awesome at it. If Achan can keep catching passes and scoring touchdowns with those receptions, okay, here we are. That's great. We're in. I think Malik Willis can return some value because he's got some rushing upside too, and they clearly are going to need people to score, or just gather yards for them, right? But the change up on this team and the way it works scares me off of Achan really, really badly right now. I do think Mike McDaniels was a really big part of the special glue that made that work, despite being such a terrible team with really bad quarterback play for the last few years. Mike McDaniel's scheme was just making things work, and his ability to use the best out of his players. For me, I know I'm giving you a long-winded answer right here, but I think that losing Mike McDaniels on this team was a mistake, and I think they're going to feel that really fast. This team feels like exactly what happened with the Jets last year.
I could see that. I could see that, especially because, I'll just say like Malik Willis does have some upside and gets me excited because he rushes, but like there's a very decent chance that this is just Justin Fields on the Jets 2.0 because it's a very similar situation.
Yeah, he's really not someone that I want. I think I like almost probably a few quarterbacks that are going completely undrafted over him at this point, just because I think they've got better weapons, and I don't know, like his rushing upside is so immense that it's going to make up for how bad these weapons are.
It is, and I think I will get excited about his rushing upside, but then there's players like Cam Ward, and I'll even, I guess, throw out Daniel Jones that are going later than him, going undrafted, that I like a lot more. And then there's players that are going around the same range as Willis, like CJ Stroud, which I'm not high on, but also like Tyler Shuck on the Saints, who I would say I'm higher on because of the consistency of the offense from, compared to last year. There's some repetition there. And this team would just need a lot of luck and a lot of magic to be offensively relevant this year.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I will say about Achan, like, Achan produced a McDaniel in spite of the absolutely porous, abysmal O-line. And the O-line, in theory, got a little bit better this year. I mentioned a lot of losses on the defense, and I did say there was a lot of losses on the offensive line, but there actually really wasn't. There was mostly additions, but they're young guys. We got Caden Proctor, drafted in the first round. We have year 2 or year 3 Patrick Paul, year 2 Jonas Savanaia, who was really bad last year. So they didn't have a lot of losses on the O-line, but they're all young guys, with the exception of their center. So,
and I think for fantasy purposes, the bad O-line actually helped Achane because McDaniels also knew it was a bad O-line, so he was doing those quick pass outlets to Achane over and over again. He's like, we can't protect the quarterback, so just toss it to him a yard out and see what he can do. And that was awesome for his fantasy output because he could do things with that. Now, if this O-line's better, or maybe this offensive coordinator's like, yeah, that's too much time off the clock because he's a defensive guy, you know what I mean? And then Bobby's slow.
Because
this is in my opinion, here's the thing about the Dolphins is it's not just the roster, it's also that this coaching staff is built exactly wrong for this roster.
Yes.
So I really am negative on all of them. Like, I'm probably leaving this draft with almost no Dolphins players except for Greg Dulcich.
I'm glad you mentioned him.
He's going to be a freebie. He's going to be someone I think you can tell real quick what his role is. And look, he's injured all the time, right? Right. Like, whatever. We know that he's injured all the time. This isn't a guy that I'm counting on to be a main staple on my team. He is, however, a guy that I don't really mind having as a tight end I can pop in because I know he's got the receiving talent.
Yeah. We talked about him a couple episodes ago, and I was like hesitant, but I've actually seen a lot of things out of camp that he's not only Malik Willis's favorite tight end target, but like Malik Willis's favorite target in the offense. And Darren Waller's gone. There is not a single other receiving tight end on this roster that I can see. I don't recognize these names. I looked up a couple. They look like blocking tight ends. So Dulcich is the tight end one, and a team with no receiver one. There's got to be something there. And I like what you said about just drafting him because he's free, and you're going to know what you're going to get out of him pretty early on. So he's worth that dart throw for me too. I'm kind of in on him too.
Mm-hmm. I just think he's someone you don't really have to commit to, right? So like, I think he could produce, and he could produce just, there's this chance, but I don't think this team's going to be good. So I don't think he's going to be a top end tight end, but I think he could be, like your Conklin of past, where he has games that are respectable enough that if you need him to fill in for whatever reason, he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So not someone I keep on my team forever, but someone who I can pick up and drop as needed. And I will just throw a last round dart at him because I can drop him, and who gives a hoot.
There's a ceiling here at the very least where he could have like a Juwan Johnson type year, where the Saints offense is probably better last year than the Dolphins will be this year, but like Juwan Johnson just got targeted a bunch and he got touchdowns. Could happen again.
Man, I would love it just because his path to relevancy has been so weird.
Yeah,
he's so plagued with hamstring injuries. Just those hamstrings he has to have like surgically removed and replaced with like base strings or something because they gotta. I don't know that makes sense. I'm saying it and then I'm thinking about the anatomy as I'm talking, and it's really messing with me. So I'm gonna just stop right there. But yeah, Dulcich, I'm in.
Yeah, a dart throw. I will say. I mean, Achane's floor is still solid enough for me that like I could see him like round 2, round 3 turn. He's gonna have some big games, but he's gonna be going earlier than that, and because of that, I'm out on him. Especially because you can get a guy that's Mike McDaniel's new weapon on a much better offense in like an Amari and Hampton, and like Achane's going around earlier than him right now. So, Achane's just a fade for me.
Achane's such a wonderful talent, but I just can't right now. I can't with the way this team is made and losing Mike McDaniels, who I think was really the secret sauce of Achane. I just can't.
It's just hard, yeah. So so for me, like Dulcich and Chris Bell are my late round sleepers, and I could see something from Tolbert. Malik Willis, like he could have a really good year, but the risk is just too real for me. So I don't know. Anything else to say about the Dolphins?
No.
Yeah,
you're giving the Bills or the Patriots an easy division again. Good job.
Yeah. All right, we're almost done here. We're gonna wrap this up quick because we're talking about the Jets. Last year, 10th in rushing, 32nd in passing. One of the worst passing years we've seen in a long time. 29th in points. But hey, they're bringing Aaron Glenn back for year 2. One more go around. They bring in Frank Reich as their OC. He's had a very mixed bag as head coach of the Colts and especially of the Panthers. But his claim to fame, and I believe the last time he was an OC was during Carson Wentz's golden years in Philly. So I'm not out on Frank Reich.
No, I actually love Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator here because he can take over real easy for Aaron Glenn as the head coach when he gets fired in week 6.
I know, just he's got that experience. He wasn't terrible on the Colts as a head coach, and like I think as an offensive coordinator, I think this is a good hire by the Jets.
Do you think this is neither here nor there? We can answer this pretty quick. Do you think that Aaron Glenn is so self-assured that he's setting up his own doom by being so confident in himself, or do you think that Woody, the Jets owner, just can't fire him because it's too early, but definitely wants him gone?
I think probably the latter. I will say though that the Jets defense, and this is Aaron Glenn's job, obviously, the Jets defense was so bad last year that there's really nowhere to go but up. And they just didn't have a lot of talent. I mean, they traded Sauce and Quinnen Williams, their two best defensive players midseason, because their defense was bad, but their offense was so bad that their season was a disaster. So they got rid of their two best defensive players. So there really wasn't a chance for Glenn to really gel with his defense. And they did bring in a lot of good talent from the draft with David Bailey, number 2 overall, out of Texas Tech, and a corner in the second round out of Indiana. There's some free agent pickups as well. So the defense got better. For sure. It had to. And I think offensively, last year was really bad. I don't want to say there's nowhere to go but up with Geno, but Geno is the new quarterback. He's had some legal trouble off the field. It came out in the past few days. We know how the NFL deals with domestic violence allegations, so it's kind of TBD if it affects his season. But as of right now, Geno is the starting quarterback. They also took a swing on Cade Klubnik in the 4th round, but last year was Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor and Brady Cook. And Geno at least has proven to be an asset for supporting his wide receiver or tight end one. Like we saw with Brock Bowers. Bowers was injured a lot of last year, but as bad as the Raiders were, Brock Bowers and Geno, there was still a connection there. Geno still likes to hyper target.
The legal troubles with Geno Smith look fairly bad, because it sounds like there's a lot of and I'm not a lawyer, but there's a lot of information that seems to back up the claims, because he's been involved with the police a few different times for this specific woman that he is accused of assaulting. So I don't think Geno has the clout to get away with it, and I don't think that the NFL cares what happens to the Jets.
Yeah.
Because this is their own doing. But at the same time, what difference does it make to me if Geno's playing or not? Honestly, you're right. He can hyper target, but maybe Cade Klubnik can do that also.
Yeah.
It's just, man, when I saw it was Geno that they replaced him with, just keep Justin Fields. Who cares? Honestly, he's terrible. Oh no. Okay, so we're gonna go get Geno Smith, who got the Raiders the 1st overall pick.
I will say at least Geno does throw the ball a lot more than Fields when he's under duress. And the Jets actually do have a really good O-line. The Raiders had a terrible O-line last year, as you know. And the Jets actually have a top-tier O-line. So I don't see Geno returning to his form a few years ago in Seattle, but he's going to take less sacks this year. And he's going to throw the ball a hell of a lot more than Justin Fields did. So I like it for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I laughed at that. I didn't mean to laugh at what you were saying directly. It's just I remember every time he threw the ball into the rest of the Raiders, it was a pick. So
yeah, and Justin Fields on the Jets, and that was with a good O-line. So there's some upgrade there. But regardless, Geno is not fantasy relevant. Don't even think about it. But I will point out though, one thing I like the Jets that the Jets did is that they didn't have a lot of losses on offense besides Fields and Tyrod Taylor. But they had a lot of additions, and young additions, but, we have Garrett Wilson, of course, returning. Adonai Mitchell has his first full year on the Jets. He's a year 3 guy from the Colts. And then we double dipped in the 1st round, or I should say the Jets. I'm not the Jets. Thank God. We took Omar Cooper Jr., receiver out of Indiana, and Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. So, the additions are coming in, but they're not filling roles. They're just adding to the offense, which is interesting. I kind of like that approach. When Dante Moore or Arch Manning, whoever is the Jets' 1st round QB next year, he's coming into a really good situation.
This is my thought on it, is that these picks weren't for this year. These picks are for next year. I'm hesitant to offer advice on drafting either of these guys right now in a redraft, because I think we're going to see just a carousel of useful weeks. These guys might be useful in best ball, but not someone who you can rely upon, because I don't think this offense is built to be relied upon.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's going to be some flashes here. I will say I think because of positional value, I think Kenyon Sadiq at tight end is someone to at least look at. I know Mason Taylor is there, but Sadiq is just an incredible talent, and he's going to be cheap enough because it's the Jets offense that you could at least, take a swing on him. I'm very apprehensive on Omar Cooper Jr. though, because it's the Jets offense, and I've heard a lot of good things out of training camp, and we also saw some things last year down the stretch out of Adonai Mitchell. And if Cooper's going higher because of name value over Mitchell, I like Mitchell just in general. Overall, I think he's probably going to show up at least this year more than Cooper. But all that to say, like if these guys aren't like late round dart throws, I'm not into them. But I will ask you though, Garrett Wilson, assuming he's healthy, is this the best quarterback situation that Garrett Wilson has had? And are you liking Wilson this year?
I actually think that Aaron Rodgers was the best, and this wasn't like good Aaron Rodgers, so that stinks. And I think if there's one person that gets hurt by all these additions, it's Garrett Wilson, because his whole entire thing is that he gets 1 billion targets, and he's pretty good at that. They have to get the rookies involved, especially if they're playing for next year. You need to get these guys experience, so you can't just hyper target Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think that again, assuming Gino's a quarterback, he does seem to hyper target quite a bit, and I think Wilson's going around wide receiver 24 right now, which is a round or two later than he was last year, and I do kind of like his value here. I just think that Wilson has produced every single year. I mean, he was incredible last year with Fields, despite the offense, and then he got hurt, and that was the only reason that his fantasy season wasn't stellar, is because of the injury. So I like the upside of him, with the path being that if he repeats what he did last year and has done many years in the past, there's a potential of it. He averages like 6 or 7 catches a game and a touchdown every couple of games and 1,000 yards again, and that is enough for him to return value for me. So I'm not screaming up and down for Garrett Wilson, but I would feel cool with him as my wide receiver too, I think.
It's hard to argue. I won't argue that. I'm Garrett Wilson's not someone who's an auto avoid. He's just someone who I'm also not reaching for. If he's there on my pick and I really need that wide receiver too, or I just hate the running backs who are there and he's the guy who I feel like provides me the safest floor, I'm okay with it. Here, non-fantasy related, my biggest issue is I just don't really want to watch Jets games if I don't have to. And I'm sicko, and I like to watch the games of all my players, so I will watch it if I have him. And gosh, it's just what am I doing to myself? But no, you're right. You are right. We've seen it before. He's not someone who I'm auto avoid for any reason. It's just someone who I can't get excited about. I just can't.
I like where he's going right now, and I just don't see his stock rising. We talk about other players whose stock will likely rise. I think Wilson's probably pretty stagnant right now, and I like him in that range. And I have similar logic with Breece Hall at running back. I'm not high on the Jets offense at all this year, but I think their defense will be better. It will be better. And there's going to be more opportunities for him to run the ball. And he's going around RB17 right now, which is good value because this O-line is pretty dang good. And if he at least repeats what he did last year, which I think there's a path to, if not getting better, I think that he's just a solid running back to target. And this is all to say the Jets offense, I just don't see his value going up much higher. Would you like Breece Hall this year?
It's the similar situation with Garrett Wilson to me. I'm not actively avoiding him. I think that all this talk of a 3-headed monster and all this gross stuff, I'll tell you this much. OCs, head coaches, they lie all the time, and they say this stuff all the time, particularly in the offseason. When they say stuff like that, you just ignore them, because what they mean is they want competition, right? And out of Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis, it's Breece Hall, and it's not particularly close, so he'll end up being the person who gets to share. But Braylon Allen's going to steal some stuff from him, but RB17, as far as ADP goes, it's not a huge risk, and I think that there's safe production to be found there. Again, it's going to look gross, but it is going to be safe as you can get, really.
He's going around the range of a Bucky Irving and a Javonte Williams, and I like Williams more, but I could see Breece, producing at the same level this year as Williams does, just because of, opportunity, and I like him more than Bucky. I think that with him and Wilson both, I'm considering targeting one of them because of where their value's at. That's kind of like my favorite picks from this team this year.
That's pretty fair. I think I would take both those running backs over Breece, but I could see them being drafted ahead of Breece regardless, and maybe even reach for, whereas Breece just kind of sits there.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where I'm not mad at taking Breece. He doesn't have the upside necessarily that I love, but it's just team construction at that point.
Yeah, and they gave him a nice contract, and I mean, I think Braylon Allen on any other team could be a really sneaky, like solid handcuff to pick up, but the Jets offense is going to have to show some consistency before I get excited about a Jets handcuff. But I like his he's a young guy. I like his talent at least, and I could see him being good in the future. Anything else to say about these Jets?
I don't really want to, no.
All right, well, give me your AFC East projections.
Okay, so I am going Bills, Pats, Dolphins, Jets, with the Dolphins actually getting closer to the Pats, maybe like within one win, because the Pats sink pretty bad.
Okay, that's a hot take. I agree with the Pats sinking. I think the Bills just have a pretty easy path to 12, 13 wins again. I think the Patriots, I mean, I could see them getting 8 or 9 wins, but I think like 7 or 8 wins is probably more likely with some regression. I'm putting the Jets over the Dolphins. I think that I like the Jets defense this year to improve quite a bit. And I think there's just enough weapons and potential on this offense that it will, completely supplant the Dolphins' lack of really much upside at all. I think the Dolphins are going to be pretty terrible. The Jets getting more than 5 wins would surprise me, but it wouldn't blow my mind.
The Jets and the Dolphins, I'm just like, they're interchangeable at this point. They're both going to be teams. I really expect Aaron Glenn to get fired. And it's not that I don't like Aaron Glenn. It's just that he took a situation that was bad. He was very confident, and they've kind of...
It got worse.
It got worse, and it got better in weird ways, right? Like, it is clearly set up for the future. And it's just a future I don't think he's going to be a part of. It's like they just lame ducked him immediately. And I think those are bad vibes too. So I don't know. So there's that. Okay, so that was our AFC East wrap up. We will finish off our divisional wrap up series, or deep dive series, I should say, in 2 weeks. If you're listening to this on podcast, then just keep listening every week. It's the same time each week. But if you're on here with YouTube, if you see it on there, 2 weeks, we'll finish up the whole thing. We got AFC North and AFC West, which are always fun to talk about. Trust me, I love it. So check us out in 2 weeks. We'll be around. If you're on the podcast, check us out every week. You already know the thing. I've said it enough. Doink out.
Doink out.